Okay, so thanks for joining in. I am Nancy, the Fall 2021 VP Academic, and today I have Ryan co-hosting with me. He was the Spring 2021 VP Academic. So this session is mainly to present a student's perspective on the TE courses. So now if the panelists can introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Illya. I'm a CE of 2022 student.
Sorry, maybe just call us out so there's
Okay.
some kind of order.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Ming.
Yeah. Hey everyone. I'm the second Ken here. CE 2022.
Perfect. Kris.
Hey, yeah, I'm Kris. I'm ECE 2021. Yeah, I was computer eng.
All right, Arnab.
Hey, I'm Arnab. ECE 2021 as well, electrical engineering.
Next we have Kate.
Hey, I'm electrical. I'm in class of 2022.
All right, and then we have Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm in CE 2022.
And then we have Jen.
Hey everyone, CE 21.
Okay, perfect. I think that's it for the panelists for now. Maybe we might have more joining in later. So for this session, the overall topics that the panelists are going to talk about and answer some questions are going to be about course content, workload, organization, labs, and application towards future courses and jobs and industries. So if you guys have any questions, just ask them in the chat whenever, and while they're talking, one of them will be able to answer your question. So this is something that we added in for this session, mainly because for a class of 2023, there was a little bit of confusion regarding the enrollment survey. So for you guys, for 4A, the survey will start sometime in September 2021. It'll be open for approximately 3 weeks. And in terms of the confusion as to what it is about and whether it's mandatory or whether it's important or why it's used, to clear a little bit of the confusion, it was mainly designed to gather student interest. And last time for 3B, there were only 8 courses. So all of them were offered regardless of pre-enrollment or the survey results, because there were only 8. So even if many people did not fill out the survey, they were able to get a spot in their required or chosen electives either way. But this time in 4A, if you don't know already, there are quite a number of technical electives. So there are basically 2 scenarios where the survey will be very essential for you to fill out. One is if there's not enough, if there's limited enrollment, the courses may be canceled. So you want to fill out the survey so that the courses actually are offered. And secondly, if it's a very popular course, and you don't fill out the survey, then you might not be offered a spot in the course when you try signing up through Quest. So it's very important that you fill out the survey. So anyways, I talked to Dave Harris, and he is willing to better explain the survey closer to when it opens in September. But overall, the moral is look out for the email for the enrollment survey and try fill it out.
I'd like to welcome Tom.
Oh. Okay, so his audio cut off. So, hi, Tom.
Hi, I don't know. I didn't actually hear who that was introducing me, but yeah, I just joined a bit late. I'm here as a panelist. I guess I should probably put that in my thing.
Yes, and also if you can tell us what year you're from and if you're in EE or CE or were in EE or CE.
Yeah, so I just graduated this year, and I was in electrical engineering.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so now that we have most of our panelists, I think we can get started. So the first course is ECE 454 Distributed Computing, and for spring 2022 4A, it's going to be taught by Professor Golab. So yeah, anyone can just start talking.
I don't mind talking about this class first. So I actually took this class with the 2020s. So I've been around a while, I guess. But it's a class that's incredibly useful for like industry and for co-ops and stuff, like all the Apache Spark, Apache Kafka, especially, is all like really useful. But it's also an incredibly hard course. It's like very, when I took it, the class was 50% exam, 50% assignments, and the assignments take like a lot of time. Now that it's 70% assignment, makes significantly more sense. And I heard that he broke up the like final into a bunch of like quizzes and stuff that made a lot more sense. So I think the course is better now than when I took it. But generally this course is hard and a lot of work, but also super useful. Golab is great. He's a nice guy.
Sorry, to add on to what Kris was mentioning. So the final so I just finished this course, and the final was split up into, I believe, 19 or so quizzes. So that's definitely, the grading scheme this time around is definitely a relief, because yes, the labs are quite challenging. Yes, you have to invest easily 20, 25 plus hours into each lab, because each lab is completed in a 2-week block, and you should not slack off. You should not wait until the second week to start on it. You have to start generally as soon as the lab is released. But I can assure you the labs are well worth it. They give a valuable introduction into how to use these distributed system technologies. And Golab, if you've taken his course in third year, ECE 356 for database systems, you'll know that he's a great prof. I definitely enjoyed his content, and I would recommend that you consider this course when you reach 4A.
Is anyone else anything else? I can just add that distributed computing in general, obviously, it's like a pretty relevant and increasingly relevant concept. I don't know how good the course is. I didn't take it. But.
To speak to relevance more, like Kafka, for example, literally came up at work today. So
yeah,
it's that kind of relevance. Is there any other topics that we like didn't touch on from your list of stuff you wanted us to talk about?
No, I think pretty much everything was answered. Labs were mentioned, course content was mentioned, difficulty was definitely mentioned, and seems like it is relevant in the workplace as well.
Yeah, I think the class is all in Java and Scala still, right?
Yes. I just wanted to add one part. There is one, so there's about, what, 14 modules, but some of them have multiple parts. At least for my year, towards the end, you will get like an introduction to how to work with Docker. So that's also another thing you can look forward to.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, it's very, very useful.
Sounds like Golab has made this course like significantly better than when I took it, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. The 70% weighting on the labs. Yes, the labs are tough, but it makes much more sense now, because if you work hard in the labs, you can guarantee that you've passed the course before you even sit the final. So that's definitely a huge stress reliever.
Yeah. How tough were the quizzes? I know the final for us was like basically a joke. It was just like he had to have a final, so he made one.
So the quizzes weren't too bad. There were some that were just flat out hard. I'm talking specifically about the clock section. Make sure to revise on that one. But there were various, so the quizzes sort of match the various modules covered in the slash chapters covered in the course. So some were just very straightforward. Some you did have to study for a lot longer. But I generally thought the quizzes were well done. As for your Tom's Simona's question in chat, I would all I can say is that the marking scheme seems relevant for the remote terms. I would hope that the professor keeps the 70% lab, 30% final assessments waiting for the in-person terms, though one point of feedback, and I'm hoping that your year shouldn't have to deal with this. We had to do all 19 quizzes within the span of 24 hours. So I'm hoping that for future terms, Golab's able to sort of stretch out the exams to like 48 or 72 hours. So everything didn't feel like a rush to finish.
Oh, so it was still a final. It was just like a bunch of back-to-back quizzes instead of like quizzes over the whole term.
Yeah, you can do, so yes, they were back-to-back, but you can do them in any order. And it wasn't, so all the quizzes released, you had 24 hours to complete everything, but the quizzes weren't didn't depend on one another. So you can do like the last quiz, you can do the middle quiz, the beginning, in any order.
Segregated.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Are we ready to move on? You both were the only panelists who took the course.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, all right then. Let's move on to EE course, which is ECE 445, Integrated Digital Electronics. And the professor for this will be Lan Wei.
Yeah, so I took this course, and I also worked quite a bit with Lan Wei. So this course is very useful if you're going into anything related to integrated circuits. So if you're interested in any sort of like digital design, like it's not, so obviously the only people who would want to take this course would be like hardcore EE people. The course is focused on like circuit level digital stuff, but even if you're doing like RTL level stuff, it's pretty useful to like have the circuit level knowledge. Lan Wei is a very qualified prof. I would say that she's probably on the end of like the tougher professors. Like you know, she's like very qualified in her field, and I think she also kind of, if anyone's heard anything about like Professor Levine, has the same kind of like, you know, people should like, the people that pass the course should like do well, but I don't know. I've never had her for you know, like a 4th year course, so that might be a different story than when she's teaching like 240 or 340 or whatever. But yeah, in general, like I would say that this is like a very useful course, and she's like a very like qualified prof. I don't know what to say about like the weightings. Those seem reasonable. I wouldn't expect like the course content in general to be like super hard, but obviously like you never know if it's Lan Wei teaching it.
I can add a bit to this. So I didn't take it this term, but I helped Dirk with this course last year, and I know several people who took it with Lan Wei this year. So Tom's right. She's probably one of the most qualified people to teach this course. That being said, though, her midterm and her exams are pretty tough, from what I heard. Like not quite classic Peter Living averages, but getting close there. And I know for one of the projects, like the marks were were given out based on the performance of her project relative to everyone else in the class, which some people didn't like. Overall, though, she was very organized with this, and she did teach this very well. It's just marking's kind of tough from what I heard.
Yeah, it's very, as far as relevance to industry, it's extremely relevant if you're doing anything in terms of integrated circuits, especially. Maybe also to a lesser extent if you're doing like digital circuit stuff, not at the integrated circuit level.
Yeah, and cadence is always useful to know in industry as well.
Yeah, if you're doing something at the integrated circuit level, for sure. Yeah.
And I guess I should add, like she was aware of how low her midterm averages were, and lots of people did complain on Piazza. But she did send out a survey after the midterm asking everyone how she could improve and everything too. So she's definitely trying to like improve her teaching and to cater to students as well. Don't know if there's anything more to say about this course. I don't think there is.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
All right, yeah, if there are no questions, then we can move on. All right, so the next course might be like one of the most popular ones is ECE 457A, Cooperative and Adaptive Algorithms. And this will be taught by Othman Bazer, Professor Othman Bazer. Okay, take it away, guys.
I can talk about this course a little. I thought it was a really interesting course. I think I had a different prof for it. I'm not sure. I didn't really interact with the prof that much. But it was like a really good course with regards to interestingness, I think. I'm not sure like I use any of it at work, but if you were doing some like high level algorithm stuff, like you might if you're doing like smart people programming instead of just code monkey programming. So I don't know. I like the course regardless. It was just very interesting.
On like the usefulness to like industry, actually everyone else in my FYDP group took this course, and I noticed that they did like have a lot of like background with a lot of stuff that's relevant to, I guess, kind of like what Kris was saying, like the really like cutting edge, like smart people stuff that's going on at some companies. Like I wouldn't expect that this to be like, knowledge that is going to, be super useful at just any random programming job. But like in general, like this is like the kind of stuff that you see in a lot of like papers and like stuff that's happening at like to give you an example, there was a paper recently released and a project that's going on at Google using a lot of these types of algorithms in my field is integrated circuits, so it was relevant to designing integrated circuits using these types of algorithms. So it's definitely like something that could theoretically be useful, but maybe not as like commonly useful as some of the other things we've talked about.
I can add on. So I took the course, I guess last year, spring. So I think the lecture slides, I kind of want to touch a bit upon that. So I think we had the same prof. I don't actually remember again, but because like just the way I learned it, I didn't really watch the recorded lecture videos. I just read the slides myself, but that's just personal preferences. So in terms of the slides, like the professor actually, same, okay, I think it's the same, yeah. So the professor actually, so this is one of those like pretty classic like engineering courses, I feel like, where I don't know, just a general perception that like courses in engineering, a lot of them are more breadth than depth. So like you will learn, like as you see, like the summary is really long. So obviously with only 4 months, there's only so much you can learn about each of them, which is not saying that nothing is taught. Like I'm saying, because like in the slides, the professor actually goes into like actual like research stuff, which is really cool. But then again, like, right, like the assignments and the exams will never touch the research stuff, right? It's just kind of there. If you're really interested, you at least they the professor actually points you to like actual papers and stuff in the lecture slides, which is pretty neat if you're interested in any particular algorithms that they cover. The assignments were fun. So some of the assignments, I think the professor was pretty accommodating. Like I think the professor let us do it in pair for some of them, but I don't remember because I just wanted to, like, I thought it was interesting enough that I did it alone. I can say that it was quite a bit of struggle. Like personally, I'm not a very strong programmer, so maybe that's a reason why. So it was a bit of struggle for me, but I think doing it alone was definitely fun. Like it was pretty satisfying. I don't know. It was really interesting. Like the assignments, you actually have to apply each of the algorithm. Okay, not at the research level, just like the general grasp of it. So you actually get to apply, and so if you do it alone, then you will get to apply pretty much most of the stuff that you see in the lecture slides. If you do it with someone else, then right, you split the work and you miss out with some of them. So I guess personal preference again. Would I recommend it? Yeah, sure. Again, like I'm not sure how relevant it is unless you're either using it like what Tom says, in your specific areas it's applicable, or if you're doing research in one of these algorithms, then then at that point you probably already know enough to not need to take this course, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely really high on the interesting scale. Usefulness, again, not sure. Personally, I'm in research, but in a whole different area, so it's definitely not too relevant for me. But yeah.
I agree with Ken's characterization from what I heard from all my FYDP group members, that it's kind of like, obviously these are very advanced topics, so it's kind of like more of a survey course kind of different techniques without going, which I guess would make it a lot easier than if it were, since these are such advanced topics, like you would need a lot of time to cover them in a lot of depth. But definitely if you're interested in like machine learning and all that kind of stuff, like it's a good introduction.
Yep. And yeah, I think to top off on Kris's point in the message, so usefulness low, interestingness high, hardness. So yeah, I don't think I thought about hardness. So I guess the markings part, yeah, it was really fair. I was surprised, I guess. So the assignments were fairly mocked. I mean, if you ask a question on Piazza, like the professor would clarify. Like it's not like we were just left hanging. So that was great. Don't know how it's gonna be like in person, but I suspect like people also use Piazza for in-person classes as well. So I guess that's not gonna change. In terms of like the exams, like I remember there was a midterms and the finals, and like the marking was like, honestly, I felt like maybe it was like quite lenient, to be honest, because I don't at least from like my own performance, I thought I would have gotten lower marks. So yeah, so that was nice. But yeah, so that's just a bit on the marking. Definitely a fair course. Like you're not gonna get much lower than you expect for like the amount of effort you put in.
I agree with all your points except for the labs being kind of tough one, because I did them with a partner who was really smart. So it was a combination of like, I think doing it in a partnership makes the lab significantly easier. But otherwise, yeah, like the course in general is pretty fair. And the prof is pretty like responsive and whatever.
Pro tip, everyone, just get really smart lab partners.
It is the way, man.
I think we're probably good to move to the next one.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Okay, so the next one is ECE 475, Electromagnetic Radiation and Propagation. Professor is Omar Ramahi.
Okay, I can start on this. I just finished this course. This is pretty much your antennas 101 course. Ignore the name. This is basically just how to design antennas or how to analyze antennas. So I can only speak to online experiences. I'm not sure how it was run in person. Professor Ramahi, he seems like a pretty neat guy. Didn't interact with us a lot. It was mostly videos that he uploaded on a semi-regular schedule, and that was pretty much it. The marking scheme is a bit up to interpretation and a bit loose. We use HFSS to design and to simulate antennas in this course, and we have 2 simulation tasks and a project, and we have 1 homework assignment plus the final exam. So HFSS is definitely useful. It's standard industry tools, and it was great learning that. The final project was design an antenna given a specific application and a set of limitations. And the final exam was take home for 5 days. So, and for all of those like projects plus labs and assignments, we did not have a deadline because Professor Ramahi said he wanted us to focus on the concepts instead of worrying about deadlines, which meant that we actually didn't really get any feedback throughout the term. But I've heard in general that he doesn't fail people and that he's relatively lenient with marking, but I'm also waiting on my marks, so I don't know about that. So it's slightly disorganized, but overall the material itself is pretty interesting. If you want to go into like any RF design, this is like a pretty good course to take. It's definitely very, very relevant, especially for antenna design. And that's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah, one thing on like the relevant, like I'm sure this applies to all of them, that you kind of have to like get a sense for like what field it's targeting, right? Like, and definitely, you know, this one is targeting like someone who wants to go into RF stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I guess another comment though. This is a very this is more breadth rather than, well, no, it's a strange combination. At the beginning, Professor Mahi did spend a lot of time going to like rather significant levels of detail, like the most basic antenna structures, like monopoles and dipoles and things like that. And it was more focused on like how to analyze these very, very basic antenna structures and then moving on to things like antenna arrays, and less so looking at like different kinds of antennas. So like if you're hoping to just, figure out like how to analyze different types of antennas, this doesn't give you that, but it does give a solid grasp on foundations. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more to say about it.
Okay, yeah.
The class is really small too. It's like 15 people, I think.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Now let's move on to a CE elective, which is ECE 458, Computer Security, taught by Professor Nazarade. Not sure if I said that correctly, but yes, feel free to speak up.
If I recall, I think he just goes by Nazar or something like that, but regardless. I think I took this course with somebody else and it was online and they like reduced the final number of projects, which as somebody who is averse to doing work, I was actually sad about because I found that the projects were really interesting. Everything like SQL injection and like that kind of stuff is all like really cool. I know there's a CS version of this course, which is hard to get into for EC students, but it's supposed to be a lot better than this one. That said, I still like enjoyed the content and I still enjoyed like learning about all this security stuff. If you've done a lot of co-ops in the security field already, there's a good chance that like a large chunk of this won't be new to you and won't be that interesting. But if you're like, like me, who hasn't done any security work, then I thought it was still pretty interesting. The course generally for us was quite easy. The prof at the time was very lenient with the marking group. But yeah, I think 3 assignments, I think that's basically what we had. And I think there were supposed to be 4, but groups of 2, yeah, all the same.
To add on to what Kris mentioned, so I just finished this course and I guess there's some changes from when Kris took it. So this course, I think it's a good course. It does introduce you into cryptography, just sort of a high level overview. This course is sort of I would say a more breadth, teaches more breadth than depth. So it goes over various cryptographic methods, key encryption, hash function, digital signatures for like up to the midterm. This is again subject to change, and then afterwards is stuff like blockchain, which is actually quite a highly requested topic in terms of computer security. So yes, the prof will cover blockchain in this course. There is also how one would attack a system for either software or physical means to extract system from it. As mentioned, there was also SQL injection, so that's part of web security. And there was also more secure design principles. So it's just more or less a high-level overview of what are like best practices for building like a secure system. It seems that the labs do change quite frequently. So for what was mentioned before, the labs I took were generally, I generally like the labs, maybe minus the last one, but I'll get to that. So what was mentioned, SQL injection, we didn't have that. We instead just had, I think we were covering one of the cryptographic methods for the first lab, and then the second lab we were looking at digital signatures. For the third lab, we were having a more research-based lab in blockchain. But again, like I said, it seems that these labs do change quite frequently from each offering of the course. So stuff should be fresh if you take this course. Overall, the labs were all right. They were never really hard. It's just they took quite a bit of time. Maybe not on the same level as 454, but they just still took time. So again, my advice for 458 is whenever the labs come up, maybe just plan a week with your partner and you should be able to easily knock out each of the labs. The midterm was difficult, but the final was very fair. So that's sort of my stance on computer security. Yeah, if you're interested in security issues, I think it is somewhat useful in co-op, at least specifically SQL injection in a web development / full stack context. Yeah, that's all for me.
I don't know anything about the course, but I think everyone should learn some security stuff, probably, regardless of what they're doing. It's very important, especially these days.
Oh, right. Sorry. Before you move, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. I don't think it's too much of an issue for like the future offerings of this course. The lectures are presented in an async fashion. So if there are sessions booked for a week, generally you probably can just get away with not necessarily attending them because there are more or less Q&A sessions for the async sessions. So a lot of the course is just learning by yourself. So if you're more of a fan of having a specific time to attend a live lecture, then computer security might not necessarily be a course for that in that regard. But again, this shouldn't be too much of an issue as we move back to in-person classes, hopefully in the fall going forward.
That's bold. Is that actually, is there any chance that's going to happen? That's interesting. Back to school in the fall.
Tom, close your trap, man. We don't want none of this jinxing this shit.
There are classes that have like in-person lectures and labs starting in next month. So yeah.
Anyways, we're probably done with this course.
Okay, ECE 481, Digital Control Systems, and the professor is going to be Dan Davison.
Hey, honestly, like just if you don't know what course to take, just like take this course, because this was not at all really that relevant to anything that I was interested in, but I took this mostly just because of it sounded interesting, and I had heard good things about Dan Davison, and those are very true statements. Dan Davison is probably the best prof I had in my university career, and he made this course very enjoyable. When I took it online, he had very well produced videos, had they would come out on a very regular schedule. He had was very responsive, clearly like cared a lot about teaching, taught the content well. There was like a course book with like all the material you needed, and it was like fill in the blanks kind of thing. And yeah, highly rate this course. It wasn't that relevant to anything I was doing, but I'm sure it would definitely, like, if you were doing control stuff, it would be.
Just want to add
I've
on to
heard his
the.
name
Oh,
before.
sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like I've heard Dan Davidson's name before in a very positive light, so I can back up that statement.
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the comments there. I had him for ECE 486, I think, or 480. Forgot the course code. It's the continuation to analog control systems, and he's absolutely perfect. Like, he has everything down, very organized. It's essentially his course content quality is right up there with MIT OpenCourseWare stuff. He doesn't like make you go read a random textbook because get the knowledge kind of thing. He has his own content, and he makes you write your own notes within it, so he keeps you engaged that way. And I don't know if he did it for 481, but for the 4B course, he had bonus marks as well to kind of keep you enticed to look through and remain on track with the schedule. And
He did do that for this course as well. Yeah, there's bonus marks if to stay on schedule and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he's super friendly. Like, you can email him at random times, and he actually gets back to you. My experience was that within 12 hours, which is pretty solid.
I actually don't know when this guy sleeps, because I remember I emailed him one time, and I was emailing him at like 10 p.m. and he was replying at 10 p.m. and then I sent him another email or something, and then he replied at like 5 a.m. or something. So I was like very confused. So when he slept, that's that time. So
yeah, I noticed the same thing. I have no clue what his sleep schedule is, but yeah, he's totally a solid prof. Like, you should just take, if you have like one TE that you're looking for to fill up a spot with, take this one with him. He's solid.
All right. Okay, then. The next course is ECE 457C, Reinforcement Learning. And this is going to be taught by Mark Crowley. And I think we have like a few who have taken this course.
I didn't take this course, but this is definitely my partner took it for my FYDP, and in addition to being very useful for our FYDP, it was also seemed very like relevant to lots of stuff going on. Again, like I was saying, with like research stuff, and very similar to like the adaptive algorithms in that sense that, maybe you might have to go to grad school or something to really utilize this material to a large extent. But yeah, definitely you hear about it.
I don't know who here has taken it, but if I recall right, Tom, is this the big math heavy one? It's like very lineage heavy.
Nope.
Not this one.
Don't think so.
Matthew, Ken Ming, and Ken Jen told me they've taken this course, unless I know I'm wrong.
I guess I can start off. I took it last year. Yeah, so spring 20. So one thing about reinforcement learning to know is that there's pretty much a Bible for it, and it's online and it's free. So a lot of the material is based off of that textbook, and the textbook is pretty well written. That being said, reinforcement learning gets really technical really fast. So there is, I at least personally, like just my personal feeling about this is that there is quite a big gap between understanding reinforcement learning on the surface and then actually understanding it. So obviously in 4 months, like I don't think it's really hard to get into the real stuff. So it felt like, again, a lot more breadth than depth. But even with the breadth, it feels like it's more surface than, for example, like 457A, because in 457A, like I felt like I could understand it more without jumping into like the really heavy math. And then in RL, it was harder to avoid. For example, for the textbook that I was talking about that everyone uses, it's really good if you have your math down. If you don't, and I'm saying like math as in it's not like grad school math. It's, I guess, not super hard, but at the same time, like there is no time in the course to cover that kind of like math stuff, right? I'm pretty sure Mark Crowley actually points you to some material that you can use to study up the fundamentals, so that should help. But yeah, that's my feeling about this course in general. In terms of relevance, I guess, like obviously if you're doing research in AI, RL is pretty much a must know. Even if you're not doing RL specific research, like it's just popping up everywhere. If you're doing controls, you should know RL. If you're doing like even like controls animations, you should probably know RL. If you're doing operations, you should probably know RL. So there's like RL. Heck, even if you are really into psychology, you should probably know RL, to be honest.
Yeah, if you're want to do like computer graphics or something, there's like a lot of RL there too.
Right, exactly, right. So there's actually a lot of stuff that touches RL, and that's because RL is a field that touches a lot of stuff. So that's why it's so cool.
Actually, I think I was wrong too when I was talking about that Google paper. I think it was actually reinforcement learning, not the stuff from 457A.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I can say also, like to kind of touch on what Ken said, my observation from my partners from my FYDP was like we tried to do a bunch of stuff for the 457A, and we were pretty successful with that. And we tried to do some stuff with RL, and we were much less successful. So I think that the practicalness, my partners seem to have absorbed a lot more practical knowledge from 457A than from this course, like that they were immediately able to apply.
And I think part of it is because in 457A, a lot of the algorithms, like it is a lot older. Like 457A concepts are way older than RL. RL is a pretty new field, right? And so RL is a new field, and RL is based on a lot more like base knowledge, like relevant knowledge than the stuff that you learn in 457A. And so it's harder to get things right in FYDP, for example, because, for example, you will have to frame your problem really well in order for RL to work very well, right? We're not at a state where you can just learn RL in 2 months and hope that it works in like a real world. So like verbal framing, like that's never gonna work unless you have a really good base and really frame the problem well. Then maybe you have some hope. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I took 457C or 493. They have like 2 names just recently. Much of what Ken said is true. I found that personally, like I didn't really like this course because what he does is like he has old lectures from previous terms, and then some of them he just like narrates over them, or he just makes some comments and then points you to some resources. But honestly, I just didn't even read his lectures. I just looked at like other like MIT or Stanford, and I was able to understand those lectures way better. In terms of like assignments, there's 3 assignments, and they're like pretty simple, but the last one is like basically he gives you like a problem, and you need to kind of play around and do a lot of, I guess, traditional RL hyperparameter tuning. And a lot of people didn't like that because A, it kills your computer if you don't like when you're doing tons and tons of training and simulations, and B, there's no guidance. There's only like one TA, and he doesn't really answer a lot of the questions. So yeah, it's really hard to actually understand what's happening. And the Piazza posts are like, some of them are like 20 or 30 days old, and the professor still hasn't even answered them. So there's not too much guidance in this course. It's kind of like, here are some links and here are some research papers, just read them yourself and kind of just pray for the best. So yeah, that's just my own experience with this course. there's also one midterm and one final. Both are relatively simple. If you understand, like they don't talk too much about the details about like the algorithms, kind of just like entry level. So like getting marks is not like a big problem. So if you really care about understanding, then I wouldn't take this course. I would just take one of the free courses by like Stanford or MIT. But yeah, the marks are generally on the higher side.
Yeah, I think yeah, Matthew had a really good point. But one thing is, yeah, like the good thing to RL is that there is seriously a lot of like really awesome content online to learn it. Like you don't have to pay a cent for them. I guess as you mentioned. So if you want to learn RL, like I think just in general, RL just takes a lot longer than 4 months to learn. Especially I think given in our engineering courses, we are not in math or anything. So I think if we were in math, maybe we had an easier time learning RL, to be honest. But we're not. So a lot of the basics you probably need a lot more time to figure out before really being able to even appreciate what is taught in this course. And so yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, so I also took that course together with my brother, and I really want to echo that in the sense that yeah, like it's quite like self-taught. I mean, of course, like thankfully, you know, the online resources that's a lot, and they're honestly really good. But also, we really have to keep in mind that like RL in, you know, many other schools, they are grad level course, right? So what it's possible to be taught in like 4 months is honestly and like obviously it'll be a lot more limited comparatively. But you know, I think this course like covers like the fundamental, you know, so RL in the tabular setting, so i.e. like without a neural network, right? But that's of course what makes RL so exciting these days. But yeah, it's, you know, it's a lot. Like you go in because, you know, you think this is like it's a cool concept, right? And they just kind of teach you the fundamental concepts, and after that, you know, the hope here is that it'll just give you that like guideline, and you can based on that, you know, continue on your own, right? And yeah, I think it's in that sense it's like a introductory course, and yeah.
Okay, I think we're almost done for this course.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. So this is the last EE course we have before we basically just have like an open panel so anyone can talk about any course. We just have one more CE course after this. So there is ECE 462 Electric Distribution Systems, and the professor would be Mohammed Nasser.
All right, so I'll talk about this. So I took this in my 4A term. It's an interesting course. I had a pretty a bit of a rough experience with it, but I didn't have Professor Nassar for the course, and I hear that he's apparently really good for this course. The prof I had, it was the first time we everything went online because for us 4A was the first online term, a full online term, and he was completely disorganized. He didn't know what he was doing, in my opinion. His lecture notes were kind of all over the place, so don't take that part of the experience as something that drives you to decide whether or not you're going to take this course. Consider the course itself. So if you're someone who sees themselves working at like companies like IESO or any power distribution company of that sort, they're a pretty big industry. California ISO is really massive when it comes to kind of leading the industry of electrical distribution. Stuff like that. Also, Alberta ISO is doing some great stuff along the lines of that too. But this course will talk about how we have power that comes from the transmission lines. So that's your, if you're talking about Ontario, that'd be Hydro 1. After that, how it's distributed to the rest of the network. So for example, Waterloo would be, I believe, Waterloo Hydro, or Waterloo North Hydro, I believe, something like that. I live in Mississauga, so for us, it's Electra. So how they kind of manage the loads, how they decide on how to size particular transformers to step down from transmission level voltages to distribution level voltages. Kind of interacting with loads such as say you have, like, for example, the what is it, the Honda plant in Oshawa, I think, or the Toyota plant in Woodstock or Cambridge. Those are ginormous customers for your lower level utility companies, and for them, how to manage them as a load, because they're pulling significant amount of power, and their loads tend to be inductive and capacitive in nature, so that can significantly impact power quality down up the line, essentially. So that's the kind of stuff we talk about through the course. You talk about, initially starts off with discussions about various terminology that's utilized, like diversity factors, load demand, things like that. And then it carries on into doing kind of single line calculations, a bit of fault analysis in distribution systems. So yeah, it's a fair bit of analysis that goes on there. It's if you took the third-year course for power, it kind of carries on from there, but you don't talk really about transmission stuff. It's all about distribution, as kind of the name suggests. In terms of the distribution of, like, your mark, from how we had it, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing with Professor Nassar as well. You're just going to have tests or exams. So if it's going to be live, I would assume it'd just be a midterm and final. But because ours was online, our prof just went with 5 tests, each weighted at 20%. So that's pretty much it.
I've also had Professor Nassar for a previous power course. So I didn't take this, but I had him for a previous course. So I can't talk about this course, but I can talk about how Professor Nassar is. And he's probably one of the best profs I've had in my undergrad at Waterloo. Like, right off the bat, he's not trying to get you, like, he genuinely wants you to learn to enjoy the concepts. I know he gave us, like, homework packages and, like, exam prep packages that were suspiciously similar to the midterm and the final. He also gave us his number, and, like, he would respond to texts at 3 a.m. asking him questions about the content and everything. You can really see, like, how much effort he puts into teaching and how much he genuinely enjoys teaching. And, like, so, I don't know, so I didn't take this course specifically, but I know, like, I've heard that this was very well taught, and, like, Professor Nassar is very, very accommodating.
Okay, all right then. Let's move on to the last course, which is ECE 455 Embedded Software. It was a popular course on the survey, hence it's here. And this is going to be taught by Professor Carlos Moreno.
Maybe I can start off
Okay.
for this real quick. I think I want to start because I took it way back in 2018. So yeah, okay, so it has been a long time since I started and I took it, and also my professor was a different professor. So I'll just give a high level thing, I guess. So this course basically, when I took it, and again, feel free to correct me later for people who took it later. But when I took it, I thought it was really interesting. Embedded, basically a lot of, like, the one thing I remember all these years after taking it is just a lot of, like, scheduling, and honestly, that was kind of cool. And I remember the last lab was like something like embedded code injection, which was kind of mind blowing when I took it. In general, I didn't find it very challenging. It was very doable. The concepts were super interesting to me. And in terms of relevance, funnily enough, I took it in 2B for some unique, special reasons, because I transferred from another program and whatever. But anyway, thing is, I took it in 2B, and it actually landed me an embedded co-op. So that was kind of neat. So yeah, I just wanted to start with that.
So I think you're the only one who has taken the course. Is there anyone who had maybe friends that have taken the course?
If I recall, for our class, this course made no sense online the way it was being taught, but it was like really highly recommended to us by the people who had taken it in person, the 2020s. So like everybody like signed up for it, and then the prof that we had at the time was like, no, we're gonna do something totally different because we're online. And we're all like, okay, bye. But I think this is normally in person a really good course.
Yeah, I remember when I took it, it was in person, and yeah, the labs were actually really cool. Like I was actually looking forward to the labs for this course when I took it. But yeah, again, maybe it didn't really fit. For one, I cannot imagine how this would be taught online. But if it's back in person, yeah, maybe it's an interesting one to have.
Okay, so we've reached the end, but we have a little bit of time left. So I know we have like a couple of panelists here who have taken ECE 463, which is design and applications. So does anyone want to talk about that? Oh, I think Arnab.
So I didn't take it, but I know people who did.
Okay,
Or
yeah, go ahead.
Did someone else take it? Like they can go first.
Is Arnab still here? I know he has
I
taken
see
it.
him in the practice.
Yeah, I took it at 463.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So do you guys know who's teaching it? Is it Professor Kazarani still, or?
It's usually Kazarani, yeah.
All right. Dope. Yeah. No, he's a really sweet dude. So I'll talk about the course first. It talks about it's an interesting course. It falls under the Power series of courses that's offered in fourth year, but it kind of lends its hand into some of the what do you call it, the silicon devices courses and whatnot. You're going to be talking about various electronic devices that utilize like BJTs and MOSFETs, but at the power level. And at the same time, you'll talk about newer devices that you may not know of at the moment, like such as IGBTs and various. I'm drawing a blank on some of these terms, but they're new ones that like silicon carbide based transistors and things like that. It's pretty cool. You talk about first of all different kinds of converter systems, AC to DC converters. Sometimes you might need to do AC to AC conversion, in which case it's a frequency correction. A lot of the focus in the course is towards power systems. So you'll think about like some more remote locations or like less established countries and whatnot, or like island countries, places like that. They'll have like grids where the frequency of the power that's coming in might be at 60 hertz, but then their grid is meant for 50 hertz, something like that. So you'll have to do you'll have to do a frequency correction in order for that to work in your local grid, right? So that kind of stuff, you'll talk about it. Then you move on to talk about converters like flyback converters and various other kinds of converters that I'm now drawing a blank on. Apologies. But yeah, it's pretty cool. He gives you nice little assignments to work through. There's no textbook, it's just his slides. That's all you kind of need to study through. He's super helpful. You can ask him questions and he'll guide you through it. Just an overall very sweet dude. He almost gives off like a nice like grandfather vibe, which I kind of like. But other than that, the labs. So we had it online. So rather than building stuff physically, we used I think it was PSpice or something like that we used to build the circuit. It's honestly very straightforward. You kind of just build the topology. Some of the times the topologies were actually discussed in homework problems, or you'll find it in the notes, so you kind of know what to do. And that's pretty much it. Don't really have anything else to add on to that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
I didn't take this course, but I can say that, some of the stuff he's talking about DC to DC and AC and frequency correction and all that stuff is obviously very relevant to the real world. If anyone heard about the stuff in Texas and with their grid and stuff, like it's very important to have interconnects and frequency corrections and stuff when interconnecting grids, and so you can share distribution between regions.
Yeah, one of my FYDP group members took this course, and he said that it's probably like one of the most useful courses he's ever taken, especially because like he wants to go into power. So like he didn't exactly use this course for our FYDP, but like when it comes to stuff like power analysis and conversion and all of that, like that's a pretty handy card to have up your sleeve. It's like it's pretty good to know. And like I've only ever heard good things about Professor Kazarani.
Yeah, just to add on to that, so if you're talking like industry application, interconnected grids are a very significant topic of discussion because, I mean, you guys probably already know from the whole Texas debacle that happened, I think about half a year ago or something like that now. It's because Texas chose not to partner up with neighboring states and whatnot that they had to face the issue that they were in. Whereas something like Ontario, someplace like Ontario, we're connected. We have agreements with Quebec, New York, and various other neighboring ISOs, and it really comes in handy because if we run out of power for whatever reason, we can rely on our neighbors to give us power. At the same time, if we have an excess, we can always sell the power to our neighbors. So it's really useful.
And if you do want to connect those interconnects, like if you wanted to connect the New York, Ontario kind of ISO or whatever, or like that whole interconnect to another region, you would need to do frequency conversion and stuff like that. So
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, if there are any other courses you guys want to talk about, please feel free to go ahead.
Is computer networks a mandatory course in 4A now, or is it like now a TE or?
358 is being offered in 3B as well. So we've already covered that in the 3B session, which is the reason why it's not here. It's like a third year course now.
Is it optional though, or is it mandatory for the CE still?
No, it's not mandatory. We can choose. I think it's like 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, I forgot.
yeah, they do the third year Cs or third year TEs, I mean.
The third year, yeah, we're done with the third year TEs, but if you guys have
that's
some,
what I mean. But you guys do TEs in third year now, is what I was saying.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that course in itself is pretty useful if you have like another opportunity to take it or whatever.
On like other fourth year courses, if you're into like circuits kind of stuff, even if it's not like super relevant, any course with David Nairn, which would probably specifically be 444. David Nairn's a really good prof as well, and he teaches that course well. Like it was much easier than, for example, a professor I would not recommend, John Long's 432, which might be something else now. I don't know, but I think that they switched those courses around or something. But like the what was his? I don't even remember what his course was, like RF. No, I don't remember. But
circuits, yeah.
Yeah,
John was a very tough prof. I had him for 340. He had high expectations.
Yeah, exactly. And I dropped his course, like his whatever it was, his like RF circuits course. Yeah, he like had very high expectations, but was like really not into the online teaching thing. And didn't really. He did like it had been like 2 years since we had done 242, which is now 340. And like he didn't really review it like much at all, and he just kind of assumed that you knew all that kind of stuff, and then yeah, just like had a very high expectations, even for like I consider myself to be someone who had quite a bit of circuits knowledge, and yeah, that was still incredibly difficult. So
I've like anecdotally heard 432 is probably like the hardest AETE anecdotally from like more than one person, and I think like part of that is because of John Long teaching it.
Yeah. Whereas like, so for example, 444, which was with David Nairn, like David Nairn will go much more into like reviewing 340/242 content, and he generally like is more concerned with you taking something away from that course rather than him trying to like set up some barrier to you passing, like
Yeah.
like the Peter Levine, John Long types might have a different philosophy, I think.
I think as far as hardest TEs go, I think this maybe has changed since all the changes he's made in the course. But 454 was for a long time regarded as one of the hardest like CETEs. But like I think, like I was saying, I think the changes Golab has made because Golab actually cares has made the course like a lot better. It's just that Java and Scala together are just like a lot. Those labs just take forever.
Ours are like the most interesting courses I took, which probably isn't that relevant to most people, but I think there are fourth and third year equivalents. But definitely the most interesting courses I took were I took 627, which is a grad version of 327, and I took 621, which I don't know what it's a grad version of some fourth year course that I don't remember the course code for, but it's computer architecture, and those were like incredibly interesting courses and had good profs for them. So I don't know if the same profs for the like, oh, I guess there would. So 327 had the same prof that's Mark Agard. And I don't know if I can't even remember his name anymore, but the guy who taught the other course that I took, but he was also Patrick something. Patrick, no,
Patrick Mutual?
No, there's too many Patricks. No, it was a different Patrick, but he was very good. I can see if I can actually find the prof's name, because if he teaches the fourth year version, I'd recommend it. Sometimes what's the name of the guy who was the undergrad chair?
Got it.
No, sorry, the undergrad like vice chair or whatever. Like,
vice chair.
Say Saini?
Professor Morton?
Morton, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Andrew Morton also sometimes teaches the architecture course, and he's obviously good. I was thinking of Patrick Huang. He taught the architecture course when I took it. He also teaches some programming courses, I think, sometimes. So yeah, he was a good prof if you see his name. Yeah, he's like newish, I think.
Just talking, yeah, thanks Tom for bringing up grad courses. Talking about grad courses, if anyone is really into like CS research, so not ECE but CS research, like there's a bunch of like CS 700, 800 courses that are honestly amazing. You should definitely take. So especially CS 800. So basically, just to give like a 30 seconds introduction, CS 800 courses are research heavy courses. So basically you go in there and like the professor doesn't really teach as much as in undergrad. It's more so like the students teach each other. So like you present papers to each other and you do stuff like that. And then the final, there's basically only like one big deliverable, which is like a mini like research project. So you try to write a paper for it and whatnot. And if it's great, then you get to publish it. So yeah, I just want to say that it's actually possible for ECE students to take CS grad courses, especially like the 800 courses, because pretty much for those courses, it's different from undergrad CS courses. For CS 800 courses, like if the prof says yes, and then like if the instructor of the course says yes to you coming in, then you can probably join. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, what I would say about the like taking grad courses as a TE, like I found that like it's definitely a pretty good option if you're not like a bad student, like because it's not like, especially the some kind of the master's level courses, they're not like, they don't assume a whole lot like of knowledge. You know, obviously it's like the same. If you think back to like, you know, first year university, there was like a lot of review of high school stuff. It's kind of the same way. Like they don't assume that you retained everything from your undergrad. So it's like generally not like, the two I took weren't like a ton harder than a given fourth year course. Like maybe they do kind of, often master students take a lighter course load, but there might be like maybe a bit of expectations, like as far as like how much time you have, that like, but as far as like difficulty level, I didn't find either of the ones I took to be like crazy difficult. Like for example, 432 was harder than either of the two grad courses I took. So
steer it back to fourth year courses. Matthew, did you want to talk about 452 to answer that question in chat?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just took ECE 452, which is about software architecture and design patterns. That course is a joint course between ECE students and CS students. So you may be lucky and get a group with some CS students. But basically, the entire premise of that course is it's an Android course where by building an Android app as the final project, you kind of learn how to apply different code architecture styles and different design patterns. So the term I just finished, we learned 6 architecture patterns, I believe, 6 or 7, and about 9 or 10 design patterns. It's a pretty fun course because you get to kind of at least meet new people. The ECE class is usually around like 30 or 40 people, and the CS class is like 100 or 120. So meeting other people from different faculties is always cool. In terms of the course content and like how it's structured, you basically form a group in the beginning, and every 2 or 3 weeks you have a deliverable. Some deliverables are just kind of like check-ins, like your progress that you made. Some deliverables talk about like what architecture style have you been using, and kind of like research one, give a real life example of one. So there's about 6 or 7 of those. They're about like 1 or 2 pages, and you have 6 people in your group, so very, very easy to do. There's also weekly quizzes, almost like bi-weekly actually. So 5 or 6 questions, usually multiple choice. Again, pretty easy to do, but not very long. And then the final part is just you demo to the class your Android app, and the prof just asks you a couple of questions about why you design your app a certain way. Why does one coding method or coding style work better in this scenario versus others? So overall, it's pretty, you can get a very high mark very easily. It's not too time consuming either, and you get to build an Android app.
I also took this course, and I would say the class is generally pretty easy. Like the content of the class itself, not that useful, I don't think, like in the real world. It's like kind of nifty to know what these like different options are, but like you probably won't consciously think about them. But you might like come across them and be like, oh, I remember factories or whatever from that class. The Android programming thing can be really cool, but it really depends on your group. We built like a roguelike dungeon crawler like game, which was just like super fun because we just made a game. Some other people made like, car dash cams with like an Android phone and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if they're still doing this, but like the way one of the assignment things that they like one of the deliverables for the app was that they like threw a twist in. So for us, the only twist they could think of was like, oh, make it so that you can record your game and share it to social media. For like the Android guys who made the dash cam, it was like if your phone shakes, then like it needs to like turn on and start recording or something like that, which was like a lot harder for them.
Oh, I don't think we had that in our
your version of it. Oh, okay, that's nice because that was like very RNG on the TA. So like I'm glad they got rid of that. But generally,
yeah, I think
the course is pretty good.
The biggest constraint was just like it could work without Wi-Fi, I guess, which makes sense. Or like there's no dependence on like an external service to always run.
Oh yeah, we had that too. It just had to be just an app, and you can't use just like some random architecture like Unity to just build this thing. You have to like just do it with Java or Android, whatever.
Sorry, which professor taught the course?
I don't know. It wasn't relevant at all to the course.
Okay.
It's I don't know how to pronounce his name. Negapan.
May Negapan. Right. Okay. So Professor May. Yeah. So the reason why I asked is because I just finished a CS 800 course with him, and I know he teaches this course as well. And I just want to say like he's a great prof, like just a great person. So that's a plus for sure. Like he's just a really great person. Yeah.
Yeah, really responsive and really cares about like students understanding. Like he sends me like, I don't know, I got probably like 50 plus emails from him throughout the term, like reminding me to like submit stuff and checking over my marks were correct. And if I had any problems, like email him to get it corrected. So yeah, very good person.
So just to clarify once again, ECE 452 as of now is not being offered in spring 2022. I'm not sure if that will change in the next month, but like as of now, it's not a course.
Well, good context anyway, since you're recording it.
Yeah. Yeah, but other than that, has anyone taken 486 by any chance?
I didn't take it, but I know people who did. It seemed pretty interesting,
Oh,
like according to them, but apparently I was kind of heavy on readings. But I think like the guy who's teaching, I think his name was Brandon DeHart or something like that. Apparently he was a pretty good prof, pretty caring, like tried to engage the students, try to get feedback and all of that.
Yeah, Brandon DeHart is who's teaching next fall, next spring as well.
is he the PhD student or like young?
No.
Really prof? No.
So I can add maybe a sentence. So I actually took it and dropped it. The reason why I took it in the first place was because of Brandon was teaching it, and so Brandon, if I'm not, I don't know if he's still this position, but he was like the like I think the manager of RoboHub or something, and like if you look into his research work he did in his PhD, it's honestly super cool. Like he used robotics for art, like actual like art exhibition, like internationally and stuff. It's honestly really cool. So I took it because of that. He's a great person. I managed to, yeah, I did kind of work with him a little bit prior to fourth year. Like great person. It's just that I dropped the course ultimately because my research wasn't too relevant to 486. What I can say from taking like 2 weeks of the course was like I don't know if it's still the case this year, but for last year they had like this online platform thing, and then you can read the textbook and everyone can annotate on the textbook, ask questions, share images. It's like a piazza on the textbook itself. It's honestly amazing. He had like some cool like bonus points thing where like if the more you participate, the more you get, and like being able to learn from everyone else's like questions and doubts and whatnot was really cool. So it was super engaging. It was definitely really heavy. Was one of the reasons why I dropped it, because I couldn't handle 3 TEs that term. I was also doing like URA and stuff. So I wish I had the time to continue taking it, but that wasn't realistic. So I would say it feels like you would learn a lot from the course, and it feels like the labs are pretty applied too, which is cool. It's one of those courses that actually gets into the depth of it, so you don't just get the surface and learn nothing. So that's a great thing. So yeah, that's something I can say.
I have a friend who took this, my roommates, one of my good friends who took this in person, and when he was class of 2020, and they used like those little robots that you see in there, the little like humanoid.
The null robots, right?
The humanoid ones.
Yeah,
right?
the null robots.
I don't know what they're called, but
yeah,
their job basically the whole term, their lab was to like get the arms to move in a way that made like some sense. And it was basically, he described it as like a term full of linear algebra and like figuring out how to make all this shit work in 3 dimensions. And it ended up that they like readjusted the marking scheme because a lot of people like could get it as long as they didn't rotate their arm, or could get it as long as like a
condition. Like reverse kinematics or something.
Well, it's like you have to, yeah, it's inverse kinematics, but also like Jacobians of velocity transformations and like all this stuff. So really cool because they got to just hang out in the RoboHub all the time and do this stuff, but also not easy.
Also will say that one reason why I dropped it was because for me it was online, which is really unfortunate because I worked with now, so NAO is a robot now quite a bit in my URAs previously, so I thought I would get to do that, but then it went online, and then would you know it, the now's software the online version isn't the best. So that wasn't even the fault of like the professor or the TAs. It was just this the company behind now just didn't really build like a super good software. So it was like the lab I remember was like super janky at the start because it was fully online. So I think in person deals would be like the course would be way cooler because you can actually see how it like how the robots like act in real space, I guess. So yeah.
I think they also had a different prof though than is teaching it now, because their prof was like a PhD student who like didn't know what was going on.
Oh, that was interesting. Yeah, but yeah, no, like Brandon's definitely. I can pretty much say he's probably gonna be like a super solid prof. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, also for me, I remember like he had like a inverse teaching kind of model, which is really interesting. So like he wouldn't just like teach you slides and stuff because he's just like, yeah, go read the textbook. The textbook is great, right? He answers all the questions you have on the textbook itself. You can see everyone's questions. And so he has like this thing where every week you can just attend, and then he would just kind of go through the most like common questions, and then he would just straight explain it. So you're supposed to study yourself before it, which is actually really good for keeping up with the content, because it could get, yeah, as Kris said, like it could get a little bit overwhelming. So yeah, just good teacher. Yeah, good teacher for sure.
All right, any other courses?
Gonna jump in real quick. Is anyone here remotely interested in any like CS 4th year courses? Like,
Why
at
not?
all?
You can go ahead and talk about them. This is being recorded, so
Sure.
maybe people who are watching it.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So I don't know how much has changed, but essentially a bunch of people want to take CS courses. Really hard to get into. I got really lucky and got into CS 480. That was how I met my PhD advisor. But that aside, so it's really hard to get into. But what I will say is that a lot of the CS courses, like CS courses in general, especially the more advanced one, like a lot of them have their like material pretty much fully online. Like the CS courses they learn a lot less. So for example, like CS 480, you can find all the slides online, like, you know, and multiple versions of them, because like multiple terms of them have all of their slides online. CS 488, so CS 480 was intro to ML, CS 488 graphics, right? Even the assignments and the code is all online. The whole textbook that the course wrote, especially for the course, is online. Everything is online. So a lot of the courses are like for 480, CS 485, right? The super math heavy ML course, like that's the whole textbook is online as well. So I will say that that's great. So just in case, even if you can't get in, even if you have like the AI option, like you can try to self-learn if it's really important for your career, or for like going to grad school or whatever. So that's yeah, that's something to know. Other than that, if you want to take CS courses, yeah, like having an AI option is really helpful. And I would also encourage, if you're emailing you know, like the admins or whoever to try to take the course, then at least try to like really motivate why you want to take it, right? Like if it's relevant for your co-op and whatnot. Because for me at least, taking CS 480 landed me a data science job at Capital One, so that was honestly really cool. So like just try to give more reason. Don't just say I want to take the course, like the end, like at least try to give it more reason behind why you're taking the course during that term you want to take the course. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say.
Okay, so to answer the question in the chat about ECE 452, if you go to the link that is in the chat, I believe I'll paste it again, about the TEs which are offered, that has like the more updated list of the TEs that are actually offered in the coming fall and spring. Fall being, oh no, sorry, winter and spring. Winter being 4B, spring being 4A. So that's the reason 452 is not being offered. I mean, there's no explanation as to why. It just says that it's not offered. And I have been told by Dave Harris it is a more updated list. So yeah. No, it does say current spring 2021, but then they changed. So like this was updated literally 2 weeks back. I asked him to make like a change on this. That is also something that I pointed out, and they haven't fixed that yet. It is supposed to say spring 2022. These are the lists of courses that will be up on the survey coming out next month, or at least that's what they've told me. So in a month, things can change, I think, not sure. But yes, that is something, the current, as of spring 2021 was something that I did point out to them, and they've, I don't know, they're just, it's vacation time even for them. So that might be the reason they haven't fixed it, but that should be fixed.
Maybe I can quickly add something, and like everyone feel free to like disagree what I say because it might be quite controversial, but like when I remember when I was in third or fourth year, then they told us, like the few of us, that like, you know, in the future they will be able to take TEs in the third year. Like I was so happy about it because yeah, my point is even if you can take TEs in the third year, don't be afraid if you really want to, right, to take TEs in even earlier terms than whatever you can take them in right now. So yeah, like 3A, 2B, like whatever, right? Because like a lot of the fourth year courses, as everyone have heard today, a lot of them, like some of them are really deep, some of them are really focused on the breadth, right? And so the breadth courses, like honestly, don't be too afraid. Like obviously ask the professor first, like, you know, talk to your advisor, like the ECE advisor, talk to them, be like, hey, like, is it crazy for me to take it? Like, and you know, like but some of the courses, honestly, it's not too crazy to take it if you really want to put in the extra time. And the reason I say this is because, at least personally, like taking for a few courses in earlier terms pretty much accounted for 2 of my really solid jobs in co-op. And also the reason why I got more, like for example, right, like in fourth year, if you take a course that about something that you never knew before and you thought it was really cool, well, guess what? You're already in fourth year. There's not really a lot of time left to pivot your career, right? Or to, let's say, hey, I want to start doing research. Yeah, you're already in fourth year, like, right? You're gonna apply for grad school immediately. You don't really have the time to build up the experience you need to get into a good grad school by then. But if you take them in earlier years, then now you can say, hey, now you bought yourself a lot of time, a lot of buffer to figure out, do you want to go into research in that, right? Do you want to go into co-op in that? And that really would open up a lot of doors. So that, yeah, that personally, that has worked out very well for myself, just taking TEs in like earlier terms. Yeah, and also the reason why I had time to do multiple URAs, figure out what exactly research kind of want to do. And like today I'm doing like right now I'm doing like, you know, like human computer interaction, which is completely different from ECE. And the reason why I can do it is because I had the fortune to have the time to think about and pivot here and there and try different things and fail at different things and ultimately land at something I'm really happy with. So just want to put that out there.
I guess to add to that, on a less future oriented and a more practical note, I finished 2 of my TEs before I got into fourth year, and it's less stress in 4A and 4B, especially with FYDP going on, to only have to like worry about taking 1 or 2 TEs per term instead of like all 3. Because I've heard, especially with like FYDP in person, 4A gets pretty crazy. So being able to like take less TEs and not having to worry about that is just a practical consideration as to like why you do more earlier.
Yeah, Kate, thanks for that great point. Like, honestly, like that's the same for me. So I took 2 to 3 Ts before 4A, and pretty much my 4A and 4B term, like I was way more chill and I was able to focus on my URA and like actually like write papers and stuff, which is not something you hear a lot about, right? And that's just like pre-planning, right? So yeah, that's definitely like a big advantage to taking them early if you can cope. Like do it in a balanced way. Don't burn yourself, obviously. But yeah.
And that also like kind of applies also to like non-TE courses too. I mean, obviously, like if you can kind of look and take like kind of weird courses too if you really, you know, plan it enough ahead of time. Obviously, like if you're going to fourth year, like you probably want to like know that now if you're going to try to like get an override, but it is possible to like get overrides and take courses at weird like and get it like approved. Obviously you have to get approved to like that's going to meet whatever requirement, which can take time. But if you do get that approved, you can take some like pretty interesting courses that might not be on like the list necessarily, but just especially if they're like new courses or something like that in a different department, there can be some like really neat courses that you could take if you plan that out ahead of time.
I totally agree with that. Like the idea of splitting apart like your 5 TEs, not doing the 3 and 2 that most people end up doing. Like I personally did one of my TEs over the co-op term. I shouted it out in the chat, ME459. It's a really chill course if you're interested in something that's just laid back and relaxed. And it's also interesting because you get to learn about various energy sources that exist and how like we're able to extract the same electricity essentially out of various different means. It's pretty cool. Just write a report, 2 exams, straightforward. But yeah, definitely try to spread it out because FYDP, it's it's quite a bit of a grind, especially if you're doing like a hardware project. Like, for example, my team, we were working pretty much nonstop on FYDP for the entirety of like essentially starting from reading week up until presentation day. We were grinding nonstop on FYDP because it just had us working really, really hard. And it was brutal because for I don't know, the guys that graduated in 2021, you guys probably will be able to relate with me on this, that after reading week, things just kept getting hectic and hectic with each week. And managing FYTP in between that was brutal. And my roommate, he's also my FYDP partner. He decided to take 3 TEs and 4B, and he was basically getting pummeled the entire time. And I was just thanking the Lord that I decided to take one of them over co-op. So definitely recommend considering to shift things around a little bit and exploring that.
I actually just like from you saying that, remembered that I actually did take 2 of my TEs in the co-op between 4A and 4B. Highly rate that. Like one of them was because I dropped that 432 course. So like obviously like I wish I would have gotten that advice earlier in my university career, that it's really not that bad taking a course over co-op. So just like if you don't feel like if you want to drop a course, like go ahead. Like it's really not that big of a deal. If you drop a course before the deadline or whatever and take a different course during co-op, like it's not like super hard to take a course while you're doing co-op, especially like during COVID. I think it was even easier, maybe with everything just like online. That was, you know, made it a lot easier to do that kind of thing. Yeah. And then in general, like I think I actually, because I took 2 courses during my co-op like that, I think I had 1 less course than the usual in my 4B, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, because FYDP does get pretty crazy. Like I think in person it's crazy during 4A, but I've heard from the well, there's a bunch of 21s here, but I heard from a lot of them that 4B got kind of crazy because a lot of them put prototyping near the end.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I want to add like a counter example, to give like a more variety, I guess. So, my advice for FYTP, please start early. If any of you have like went to in-person like exhibitions for FYDP and you talk to like the teams that look more prepared, they always tell you that they start in 3B. That's not a coincidence. So like in first, second, third year, like I always talk to them, they're like, yeah, we start in 3B. So I'm like, I guess I should start in 3B. So I started in 3B. You're right, like basically after reading week in 3B, managed to find a team. And then we found our advisors even before 3B ended, like the week before finals, we found our advisors. And we got rolling the co-op before 4A. So I'm in stream 8, right? So the co-op before 4A, we got rolling with our brainstorming. And like my experience is very different from what everyone just mentioned, because in 4A, okay, like our prototyping was pushed back to 4B pretty late. So in our 4A, like we were just continuing our brainstorming, and honestly, I think it was pretty dang chill. And then pretty much after that, the last co-op before 4B, we kind of just ramp it up a little bit, write a little bit of, we did a purely software thing. And then because we had so much more time than like most of the teams, like 4B was pretty chill as well. And yeah, we did get kind of good marks for it. So definitely advice, like not only for TEs, like even for your FYDP, like please start early, like don't procrastinate too much. Yeah.
Somewhat like, so like we didn't really start our actual project until 4B. Like we did just like the documentation really, and we started all our actual coding like in 4B, and it was like pretty hectic. But honestly, like I kind of like, I think that we put way more effort into the actual like coding part than we needed to, because like all the marks for FYDP were basically based on presentations and documentation and stuff like that. So honestly, we probably didn't even need to put in nearly that much work into the actual coding part. We could have just like made a nice presentation and gotten the marks.
Yeah, for us, we did a lot of it over co-op. We had like a very regular schedule starting in 4A, and we like stuck to that. Like we had like 3 or 4 sessions a week basically, and we just kept that all the way through to 4B, and our product turned out pretty well. That was it. Worked out nicely. We were all happy.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to caveat is don't take FYDP lightly, because there's a pretty heavy administrative component to it where you're doing a lot of documentation. I'm not sure if you guys are going to get it like as a live offering. We obviously had it online, and Professor Sagar essentially made for just an entirely heavy documentation intensive course where we just kept writing reports after reports, and God knows what we were writing because we didn't have any prototype that we were actually working on as we built it. Because you kind of like with at least we did a hardware project, so you kind of want to be able to put write down words and then kind of try something out and then see if it works or not, and then go back and revise your wording. But we didn't get that opportunity, so we just kept writing words that didn't make much sense, or in theory it made sense to us. And only after in 4B, when we started applying things, we started realizing, oh, ultrasonic sensors totally don't work for blind spot monitoring. So what do we do? And then in between, we pretty much had to implement an entire blind spot detection system using machine learning in a span of like 3 weeks or something like that, which was just straight out hectic and crazy. So
I think it really depends if you're actually like trying to do a project that works, in which case I agree with all this advice that like you should start early and like, you know, not underestimate it and all that kind of stuff. But like if your goal is to like pass the course, honestly, I don't think they fail people that much. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
I
all
wouldn't
depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to make a company out of the thing, you're gonna have to slave. If you're trying to like do really well and make it something that works, you're gonna like need to be organized and work pretty well. But if your goal is just to like pass the class, then you know you just need to do some stuff and do the
just like do the busy work, like do the documentation. Like honestly, like we submitted some pretty crap documentation and got some pretty good marks on it. So I don't think that they really
I think the biggest
cared
key
that
there
much.
is just make sure your group agrees with that.
Exactly.
Don't be the one kid who's trying to pass while the rest of the group is like trying to make a company.
Yeah, my
Yes.
group was very on board with we don't care anymore. We just want to pass.
Your group generally should be on board with the idea, or else the group will just fragment in the beginning. Which, oh yes, there's advice of trying to form your group early on. Try to do. Ideally, you should try to get some things done before 4A. I don't know if it's already been mentioned, but such as, you know, try to form your group and have just some sort of idea, plus your consultant relatively ready to go by the start of 4A.
Definitely agree with that.
So
go ahead. Yeah.
We formed our group in 4A and it wasn't that bad. Like I just think like if you vibe with your group and you guys are all kind of like on board with the level of like the way that you're approaching the course, it probably won't be too bad regardless of what you do.
Oh yeah, same. I formed my group in like the first week or two, the week before and basically the start of 4A. So, and it wasn't too bad. So again, FYDP is kind of down to what you put in, what you want to get out of it. So like, as mentioned before, if you want to build a company from it, you are going to have to slave away at it. If you just want to build something that works, well, that's not entirely too difficult. Just again, except that you will have to go through several revisions of your project just to get something reasonable to build within a 3-month time span. So ideally, I guess like mid-July to August, maybe a bit over co-op, and then like a month or two into 4B.
Yeah, if you do want to get something that works, like I agree though that you should start early because there will be shit that'll come up and like throw off your plans if you actually want it to work. Like if you don't really care if it works and you just want to like pass the course, then you know I don't think you're gonna fail.
I will say
another thing to add is that like pick your consultants carefully and be clear with expectations with your consultants, because I know like some groups have consultants.
I had a non-existing consultant. So
yeah. About consultants, I just want to caveat that as well, that be very cautious about it, because like the consultant we ended up choosing, he had expectations through the roof for us, and he was someone who we felt honestly didn't take into consideration the difficulties of trying to do a hardware project online, and with every single member being all across the freaking country. So he wasn't very cooperative in that regard. So that's one issue you should consider. And another thing, you don't have to get a consultant from the university. You can always consider like a co-op manager or something like that that you had good connections with. You can consider them. You just gotta speak with Professor Sagar, and as long as he signs you up, you're good. So keep that as a consideration as well.
Yeah, I've talked to several profs, which is what we did. Like we gotta, I don't want to say vibe check, but we literally vibe check the profs just to get an idea of like who we would work well with. Like our prof is very, very hands off, and we probably met him like 3 times over the entire term. There is a component in like 498A where your prof actually marks your progress and everything. So like if your prof isn't setting expectations, don't expect to do very well in that, especially if you guys aren't on the same page. Like we got really lucky when we had like a pretty chill guy, but it could have went the other way really, really easily.
Yeah, FYDP is a choose your own adventure story. So like everyone will have like very different experiences probably based on what they chose for the project, what consultant they had, what their goals were, like, you know, all these types of things. So
but yeah, if you're gonna choose like a prof to go with you for your, especially for the marking part, definitely keep them as involved as possible and make sure you're clear about their expectations, because you don't want like them to spring up on you with, oh, these things don't meet my expectations on the day that you're being marked, because you put all this effort in and then someone just comes in out of nowhere and judges the hell out of you. It's not a very settling feeling. I can tell you that I had a few sleepless nights where I was just losing my mind because of it. So yeah, just something to put out there.
I want to also quickly add something. So the good thing about starting early is that you get time to choose. We, just like Kate said, we literally had interviews with professors, and some of them we chose, some of them we did not want to be our advisors. We had a month to do that in 3B. When no one else was talking about it, we were talking about it. And so the professors were down to listen to us, right? So you're not competing with anyone. One more thing as well is that I don't know if the policies changed, but for us, we had to have an advisor that is at least cross-appointed in ECE. But mind you, a lot of the cross-appointed professors in ECE, you don't ever see them. So for us, for my team, we reached out to a professor in management science who is cross-appointed in ECE, and Professor Oliver Schneider. Honestly, he's the best. Nothing else to say. Hands down, picked us up, and then even during the co-op before 4A, we already had meetings with our advisor once every 2 weeks, and that never stopped pretty much until 4B. Like, I don't think I know of any other professor that was like that committed to our team. And we were in so close contact that for the stuff that he's gonna mark us for, we literally had like demos for him. So he would literally just like give us all of our weak points, we would change them, and then we would get good marks. And he was strict, he was really realistic, but because we had a really good connection and communication, like even if he was strict, that actually played to our advantage, because now when Professor Naik or whoever marks our documentations, it's always really, really good. So yeah, just want to put that out there. I guess, sorry, if no one else wants to add anything, I wanted to, like, going back to taking TEs earlier, I wanted to quote like Professor Doug Harder real quick. So I'm a transfer from another engineering program, and I transferred into ECE, and ECE 155 was no longer offered, but I had to take a replacement. So I was in Professor Harder's office, I remember, and he told me, hey, like there's this 4th year course, like 455 is literally like 155, but 4th year. Do you want to take it? I'm like, sure. Isn't that crazy? And then he just looked at me and be like, what do you mean? I have given permissions to like 1st years to take 4th year courses. And that kind of blew my mind. And that's one sentence was the reason why I started taking courses left and right. So yeah, I just want to quote him because I thought that like that really at least improved my university life like a lot. So maybe that's helpful for someone else.
I'm going to take off now, friends, but thank you for hosting this. I hope it was helpful to everybody who showed up and watches it later.
Yes, thank you so much for the panelists as well as the people attending the session. It was very much useful. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's about
Thank you.
done. So you guys are feel free to like log off.